Welcome back to Interjections, a derby preview version of Interjections following that 2-2 draw to Cagliari. I'm your host, Andrew. Sterling, Jay, and Irfan with me today. Irfan, how's your morning going?
Yeah, doing good. A little disappointed after the draw, but overall feeling still pretty positive. Excited for the derby. How about you all?
Yeah, no, same here. I think that a disappointing draw, but I also think it was predicated by the fact that we also knew that Milan drew. So, realistically, how Inter is, they don't like to do anything the easy way. So they want to go into that derby needing a win, and that's what we're going to do.
Jay, I'm sure you're conflicted emotionally as you head into this week, your two favorite teams competing against one another.
Um, Look, uh, I won't exaggerate, but that was the worst match I've ever seen in my life. No, um, yeah, Irfan said it disappointing. I think the guys are pretty much done with the season. I think they just want things to be over. I think they just want that Scudetto and they want to go on holidays. So you could see that in the performance. But yeah, I won't be conflicted heading into the derby. I'm also of the same mind as the players. I just want the season to be over. I want the Scudetto, and then I don't want to think about football for a little while.
We had a chance yesterday to make our lives easier. If we would have won, all it would have taken was a draw against Milan to secure the Scudetto. Unfortunately, we blew two one-goal leads over the course of the match. Got up early. Thuram finally gets off the snide, scores a goal, ending his long droughts. That's followed up by a pretty, I don't want to call it a wonder strike, but a long ball over the top that Kyrie convert that they really shouldn't have. Later in the match, we win a penalty, we go up, everything's looking good. And then, of course, you have the incident we'll talk about the handball, no handball. But before we get into the incident specifically, Sterling, what were your thoughts on the initial goal by Thuram, just him getting off the schneid, and what do you think went wrong on the goal that we conceded to tie the game up 1-1?
Yeah, regarding the goal for Turam, I think that he needed that goal really badly. I'm glad that it came before the Derby because really in the first half of the season, in the big matches, it's usually been Turam that's made a difference. Either it's some type of goal contribution, either a goal or an assist. He's kind of been our big game player. Obviously, that didn't quite go to plan against Atletico when he missed that really vital chance, and I think that that kind of pegged him back a little bit. That mentally, plus the injury, he's been needing a goal for a while. This was a pretty easy finish. Credit to Sanchez on that goal, breaking the offsides trap there, making a very well timed run, and then really easy cutback there for Thuram to just kind of tap home. But it was a good goal, good to score early. I believe it was at the 12th minute that we got that goal. So always kind of relieves tension when we can get an early goal, especially when we're at home. That usually means that we're going to go from strength to strength and start to pummel teams. But that wasn't the case against Cagliari. I got to give them some credit. I think that they're obviously fighting for a reason, and you got to give them some credit for that. However, as Jay previously mentioned, I really think that this Inter team has just kind of checked out. And I've felt like that really for the last 2 or 3 weeks, really since the Champions League exit. We just haven't really looked like the same team. Same thing today. We still have our pretty patterns, but we kind of just play them without conviction. It just seems like we're kind of comfortable sometimes passing the ball around instead of really putting teams to the sword. There was just an extra gear that we had that we were playing with a little earlier in the season, and obviously it's kind of subsided now. It's hard for me to even say it's disappointing to see because I think mentally I kind of feel the same way. I'm also ready for the season to kind of be over and for us to be crowned champions. If as long as we get it done in the next couple of weeks, I'm fine with that. As long as there's not any type of a slide or anything like that that happens, which I don't think that there will be. So, we'll just have to kind of see how things go. But I think that the second goal in the match, the first goal for Cagliari that comes about from again us just kind of sleeping, being lackadaisical. We had just made a substitution. Frattesi came on for Mkhitaryan. I think the team was just kind of in a false sense of security, and then all of a sudden, oh wham! There's a long ball. It's knocked down, and one shot, boom, goal. before we even really knew what happened. Play had just restarted, so it was kind of a weird one. But again, I think it just all goes down to a lack of concentration right now.
Of course, the dream of catching Juve's all-time single-season point record is dead. I know that was something people were striving for, but now with that gone, there's nothing really to play for other than mathematically securing the Scudetto. You figure it's just a matter of time. In fact, it could even come next weekend. And once that's accomplished, there's going to be a sense of what do we have left to play for. But we can cross that bridge when we get for it. For now, we need to talk about the incident and the 85th minute or whenever it was, and that's the handball, no handball goal by Kyrie. Jay, what were your thoughts on the goal? Did you think it should have been disallowed? And what were your thoughts about maybe the play in the second half by the team? In my opinion, once Ranieri condogbia'd somebody on his team and took him off around the 30th minute, he changed the shape and they started playing a lot better, and we never really recovered.
Bold of you to assume we'll get the Scudetto done eventually. Yeah, I agree with all the aforementioned talking points. Firstly, the handball. Well, it was definitely a handball and should have been disallowed. It seemed like just during the kind of shoulder to shoulder jostling that went on, that the arm kind of came out involuntarily and made contact with the ball. So I don't doubt that it was unintentional, but still the arm was far away enough extended from the torso for it to be in a unnatural position, and then obviously the trajectory of the ball was changed significantly. It was almost a pass, because if I'm not mistaken, it came off Lapadula's arm, and then kind of Viola was to Lapadula's left, if I'm not mistaken. So it like the ball doesn't travel kind of horizontally without touching the arm. You know what I mean? So yeah, the arm played a pretty significant factor in changing the trajectory of the ball, and it definitely should have been disallowed. Having said that, I think everyone is more or less is in a position of, or is in the view of, at this point, who even cares? Just given the kind of universal tiredness of Inter fans. The goal itself, rather the defensive lapse rather that led to the goal itself, was like, how many times do you see the same thing where like a high ball is contested, like it's a second ball, it's a second ball is what it is, and we were slow and lazy to it. The defensive line did not kind of move forward in time, and no one anticipated that ball might be headed back over to our side. But these are the kinds of spillages that you got to be astute to tidy up, and we weren't, and we ended up paying for it, courtesy of the handball. Yeah, in the second half, or rather, following the change, I agree. Ranieri's tactical change. I mean, I agree with you. They played a lot better. I dare say they had better clear-cut chances than us. There wasn't many in the game in total. I thought the game overall was really, really poor. I didn't like the way the team played in general. I thought we did kind of raise the tempo a little bit after conceding the equalizer, but once we got the second goal through the penalty, we kind of took it for granted that we would just see the result out, and yeah, that's when these things kind of come back to bite you. So yeah, like I said, all in all, disappointing. And Sterling pretty much summed it up perfectly. These guys are checked out completely. So really, just hoping that the team can kind of get one last, hurrah for the derby. For all I care, we can lose the remaining games. I don't think anyone really cared about the 102 points and equaling, Conte's record from. Yeah, neither did I. And sometimes you get like It's one of
I certainly
those
didn't.
intangible things. Sometimes you get a sense that people care or don't care about something, or that something is important to the group or not important. But for whatever reason, I always got the sense that no one at the club cared about the 102-point record. And um, on this one, I agree. I don't ever think it was important. So I could definitely see us kind of dropping a few points if and when, God forbid, we mathematically secure that second star. But yeah, as mentioned, I'm just hoping the guys can pull it together one final time for the derby. Let's win it emphatically, and like I said, for all I care, we can lose the remaining games.
Irfan, I want to get your thoughts. This season is starting to mirror Napoli's season from last year, in that you get out to this huge lead in the table, and then the foot comes off the gas. You're the Scudetto, but somehow you just walk away unconvinced by the performances. And we all know what happened to Napoli this year. Deals with that. So why do you think it is that you see these teams just unable to sustain the level of play across an entire season?
Yeah, I think it's just human nature, to be honest with you. I think kind of like what Sterling was saying, what Jay was saying, what you were alluding to, the team's kind of mentally checked out. I mean, I think they know that the Scudetto is kind of a mathematical certainty at this point, and there's not really much else to play for. I think the Champions League exit was pretty disappointing and had a cascading effect on the team because I think they all knew and thought that the Scudetto was well in hand. And as a result, like what you're seeing out there is you're seeing us have these like misses, whether it's on the offensive execution side or if it's on the defensive side, where we're just not clicking on all cylinders. And it's because, you're not playing with the same intensity. Like each individual of the 11 is not playing with the same intensity that we were earlier in the season. I mean, both of the Cagliari goals were essentially defensive effort plays that we were second best in, right? I mean, you can't really get muscled and headed off the ball the way our players were. We certainly weren't doing that earlier this season. Now, I still think that the second goal is an absolute scandal. Like, there's just no reason why that goal should have stood at all. Like, it is as clear a handball as you're ever going to see. So it's unbelievable to me that it wasn't called back or it wasn't reviewed or whatever happened. Or it looks like VAR did review it, but they said it was like unintentional, which is like absolute horseshit. So even with that said, like, you can tell the team execution overall is just not there. And I think it's because part of it's human nature. Like when you know that you've got something secured, you just don't play as intentionally and as like intensely as you were earlier in the season. But it's no surprise to me that I remember like just a couple of weeks ago we were talking about how Inter have this record, we've never conceded after like the 80th minute, and now we've done that so many times, like 2 or 3 times, and then on top of that we didn't usually give up leads. Like if we went up one goal, it was kind of done at that point. And to do that twice against Cagliari, who I know is motivated, and Ranieri's a magician in his own right. We're leaps and bounds better in quality than those guys are. So we should have easily handled this game. When we first scored, with that great play by Sanchez to thuram, I thought we were done. I thought it was just going to be kind of business as usual. And the fact that there is no business as usual anymore for this team is definitely concerning. The one positive thing I'll note is that if the players do think there's a lack of motivation and they're lackadaisical and there's this like human nature element of just being a little casual, a derby should certainly break them out of that. I mean, regardless of where you are in the table, whether you're in a very inferior position or a superior position, the derby is one where you're going to get fired up, you're going to play. And I'm sure, as much as we were talking about how no one at the team seemed to care that, you won, you would break the record and get 102 points. I think people on the team probably do care that you beat Milan, and that kind of, cements your official Scudetto. So it would be great for them, I think, as a feeling to be like celebrating at the San Siro after beating Milan convincingly. So I'm sure there's some element to that. So hopefully, like, Inzaghi can fire up the boys, and, Lautaro, after having a bit of a rest, can fire up everybody, and the veterans can do the job that they're supposed to do. And we come out firing on all cylinders against Milan, because we should have a pretty much full squad ready. So hopefully that breaks us out of this little slump. And then, like everyone else said, I could care less what happens afterwards. The one thing I would love to see is Mkhitaryan not play 90 minutes for the rest of the season. Like, let's give the bench players. Let's see some more Buchanan. Let's see some more Aslani. Let's see a bunch more of the kind of back end of our squad. Bisek, I would love to see Bisek playing all the time. So let's wrap it up against Milan and then move on and give some of these young kids a chance.
I kind of don't want to see Buchanan playing after yesterday. I felt like that was such a clueless kind of. It was a very, very lost performance. Like he kind of picked up where he left off last time, where he was afraid to. He played with such a hesitancy. He was afraid to make decisions, whether it was a cross or a shot or whatever it was. But he was afraid to fuck it up, and in the end, he did it reluctantly, and the lack of conviction with which he did it caused him to fuck up anyway. So it's kind of the worst of both worlds, unfortunately, yesterday.
I know, but that's why these guys need reps, right? I mean, putting them out there in a match where the pressure's off because we've already won the Scudetto, and then they're playing from the first minute, so they know they have a pretty long leash. Like that should give them the kind of tools to go out and play their game the way they should. But I agree. I mean, he was very unconvincing yesterday, and he hasn't shown that much in the times he's played. But all the more reason, I think, if we could get like 4 or 5 matches in where all of these guys are getting pretty consistent playing time, we can kind of see what they're made of.
Yeah, then you get into that chicken and the egg type of scenario where it's like, well, is he not playing because he's shit, or is he shit because he's not playing? And it's like, well, we just don't know because Inzaghi really hasn't given him much of an opportunity. I think with Buchanan, we have to see a much larger sample size, and he has to be given a real opportunity. And I don't know if he'll ever get a run in the team or not, but realistically, that's what you need to see from a player before you can really make a true judgment, especially on a somewhat younger player. I know he's not that young; he's like 25, but he's not a 32-year-old grizzled veteran player like Inzaghi loves, where you can kind of just plug him in at any time and he's going to know exactly what to do. He needs to get at least really 4 or 5 matches to kind of bed into our system. Hopefully that'll happen either once we wrap up the Scudetto, but realistically, I think it's more likely that we'll see him start to be embedded in preseason where there's zero pressure, and then hopefully he can really be a contributor next season, because I do think that there's something there. I think that he is still raw, especially for a 25-year-old, and maybe that's part of the problem. Maybe we just don't have the time or patience for that, but we did buy him. We made a pretty big financial outlay to bring him in here. I guess it's all relative in what we consider big, but I would say decently large for Inter. So, I hope we give him a chance. I hope we actually have a real plan for him and that we do plan to embed him into the team. And I also would like to see him on the right side at some point. I don't think that the left side is a perfect fit for him in this role.
Yeah, I think finances will dictate that. We'll probably give him a real chance because, this offseason, again, we'll probably need to sell somebody. Dumfries seems like a prime candidate. So I think Buchanan's here for the future. He's like the insurance policy for us to get rid of any of the wing backs. So I think he'll get some more time. Going back quickly to Andrew's question, I don't suspect that there'll be like a, next season lag for us the way it happened for Napoli this year. I think there's a lot of stuff going on with Napoli. I mean, they sold one of their best players, their center back, and they've been struggling defensively. And then losing their manager was a big thing. I mean, we're going to have continuity on the manager side. And then also, did Napoli lose Osimhen for a while, or he was gone too for the African Cup or something? So I think there's a lot of stuff kind of happened with Napoli that led to them kind of getting derailed. I don't see those issues happening to us unless we have to sell a really big name player, which of course, in our current ownership situation, we never know if we might have to do that.
There's really no team in this league right now that we should be afraid of next year. It's not like there's somebody who's breathing down our necks or going to be retooling heavily in the summer. Yeah, I know.
The
I
Persian
meant to
God
ask you
King
what
disagrees.
shirts you're going to be wearing on Monday when you're watching the Derby, but maybe we'll save that for the preview. But no, I mean, Milan, look, they may make some more moves this summer. I think that obviously they're going to end up getting second place this year. They're the team that's probably closest to us. There are some fantastic players on Milan. There's no doubt about that, but there's still some pretty large weaknesses there. If they can address those, eh, maybe, but I still don't have ultimate faith in Pioli in the long term. So I think that they're probably a shoe in for second place again next year. Juventus is a mess. Do they keep Allegri? Do they get rid of Allegri? Napoli is a different team than they were. And I mean, realistically, outside of that, there's nobody who's going to, I think, threaten for a Scudetto over the course of 38 games. So, I mean, I think going into next season, once again, it's really ours to lose. Now, the problem with this team is that historically we've shown that we can find a way to lose those types of Scudettos. Obviously, it happened once before, but I do think that this team is a different team now. We've matured. Inzaghi has matured as a manager as well. So, I think that we will have continuity, and I think that there's no reason that we shouldn't be looking to get it done again next year.
The part that puzzles me about this all is, first off, I want to talk about a financial point, which is this is the same club that once spent 20 million on Valentino Lazaro, played him 2 games, and decided, you know what, never mind, before loaning him out for 4 years. So I would not be entirely shocked if Buchanan's not given a proper opportunity. But I feel very confident in saying that Darmian is going to be the starting right wing back once the fixtures start up in August or whenever of next year. The biggest thing is Inzaghi and his system, and the fact that he continues to, regardless of what's ever spare parts we find on the scrap pile and give to him, he continues to create something out of it. It's impressive, honestly. You take these players who on the surface just don't seem like players who would fit in with his style of football. Like, I can't remember him ever having a player like Dzeko at Lazio, but he takes them and he integrates them into the team. So as long as we have enough funds available to put together a squad that can compete in 2 or 3 competitions, like you'd like to think, we'll be fine and won't have that Napoli-like fall off. So I want to get into the derby preview, but before we do that, I think we have to talk about the biggest news of the week, which was Scamacca scoring a brace against Liverpool at Anfield. Sterling, your
Yeah,
thoughts?
you know what? I think Scamacca all of a sudden is starting to turn that corner a little bit. It is interesting because, I mean, he had a really poor first half of the season. Obviously, he had some injuries as well. He's been left out of the Italy squad in the most recent call ups, and all of a sudden now the guy's got goals against a lot of big teams that they've played in the Europa League, and all of a sudden you do start to think, man, if we did sign him, would we maybe have gotten a goal from him in that home leg against Atletico instead of whatever Anartovic did, which eventually he did score, of course, but there were some really big misses, and I think we all know we should have won that game by probably 2 or 3-0 instead of 1-0, and maybe we'd still be in the Champions League. But ultimately, what happened in the summer. If we sign Scamacca and we don't sign Pavard, do we, end up having to expose Bisek earlier, or what kind of happens with that whole right side because Dumfries ends up having issues as well. Then you think that what if Scamacca was struggling here with the pressure of just crushed him? There's a lot of what ifs that could happen there, but happy for Scamacca that he is finally starting to show his level.
All right, had to get that mention in, but we can get to the derby preview now. Jay, I will let you level set Milan because I'm sure you've been watching most of their matches. Just to restate, so we need a win here. A win here guarantees the Scudetto. If we don't win, things get complicated. We can break that down in future episodes. But for now, let's just focus on the objective at hand. Win the game, win the Scudetto. Milan are coming off 2 straight matches of dropped points. They played Roma in the Europa League, lost 1-0. They rotated heavily this weekend against Sassuolo, had a kind of a game like ours, a very heavily back and forth, a few disallowed goals in between, ended up drawing 3-3 against Sassuolo. And as a result, they head in. I think they actually have a Europa League game this week against Roma as well, if my memory is correct. So they have some fixture congestion here. Jay, what are your thoughts on this Milan side as we head into the derby?
Yeah, you said it. They had 2 matches in a row without winning. which I think is important. I've always maintained this Milan side are very annoyingly confidence-based side. Um, they string together a couple of wins, and they get that belief. And next thing you know, they've gone like 10 games in a row, winning 9 out of 10 and drawing the other or something like that, and kind of playing above their level, as disrespectful as that sounds, intentionally. But someone gets in there and chips away at that confidence, like Roma did, kind of unexpectedly grabbing the win at San Siro. The next thing you know, that confidence kind of gets a little bit shaky, and we saw that against Sassuolo. On one hand, you kind of got to say that they did well to come back from a 2-goal deficit twice in the game, especially after going down 2-0 in 10 minutes. But at the same time, Sassuolo won 19th, as you mentioned. So it's kind of objectively a poor result for them. And like I said, I think it bodes well for us. The fact that they did have suffer 2 kind of knocks to their form and to their momentum and confidence. And Roma will be fired up in the return leg in the Europa League. Not only is it a local rival that they want to get the better of, especially after so many years of that washed up has been former coach of ours, was unable to lay a finger on Milan for 3 years, only for De Rossi to come in and show him how it's done. So they want to, capitalize on that 1-goal advantage and really secure the result in the home leg in front of all their home fans at the Olimpico. On top of that, they'll be presumably playing for Ndika as well, who looks like he had like a heart-related incident, but their match against Udinese was abandoned because of the player coming down with some potential heart issues. So hopefully Roma rally and give Milan another beating, and I think that'll give us a further advantage should they win for the derby as well. Because like I said, I really, really believe that they are a confidence and kind of motivation and flow and form kind of base side. They can kind of trick themselves into thinking that they get into these purple patches where they play far above their level. And so anytime you can knock them down from that is good, and you can kind of see their real level. Just quickly want to address the midfield situation. I mean, on one hand, even for myself, it's kind of like the obvious thing to start Mkhitaryan, but I'm a little bit concerned. He's been like really, really, really poor. He's just been downright sloppy in the last like 3-4 games that I've seen. He just seems, we've all talked about it, that our players look kind of jaded. Sterling surmised it perfectly by saying they no longer seem able to kind of hit that extra gear or that higher gear that we had earlier in the season. And I think the player that signifies this the most is Mkhitaryan. I think he's had, other than Lautaro and thuram, who both went scoreless for like a month or two, I think he had the kind of biggest drop-off, at least to my eyes. He just seemed, like I said, very sloppy, very fatigued. He still had some nice kind of gliding dribbles here and there, but it was all for naught because he misplaced the pass. His execution on the final ball was off. I guess at this point, the only reason he deserves to keep his spot is because, we've discussed this countless times, but just because of the profile or mold of player that he is just so useful for the way we play, and of course his kind of defensive effort. But I guess his attacking output and his just general quality has declined really sharply over the last few games, at least to me. Please talk up if you think I'm in the wrong here, but it's almost at a point where I would really be tempted to start Frattesi. Not that Frattesi's been like anything, but special minus the the late goals. But yeah, kind of tempted to start Frattesi start Frattesi if it were up to me, but I'm not sure one way or the other.
Yeah, I think there's zero chance of Frattesi starting realistically.
Yep.
Unfortunately, I actually don't disagree with you, Jay. I think that Mickey, especially in the second half of this season, has really left a lot to be desired. Then especially in the biggest matches where the intensity and the pace has been ratcheted up. I think he started to look his age a little bit, unfortunately. And I think that that's also having to do with Inzaghi overplaying him. I don't necessarily know that it's all his fault. He's become the new Dzeko of this team, where anytime he's fit, he essentially has to play. Inzaghi won't play anybody else. He won't rotate him. He basically runs some of these older guys into the ground. If he loves him as a player, he just feels like he can't do without him. So um, right now, Mickey's still that guy for him. So he's going to definitely be starting in the Derby, no doubt about that. But I think that long term, we as fans know. I think even Morata probably knows as well. I'm kind of thinking the only person who might not know is Inzaghi. But we do need a long term replacement in that position, and we've already got him secured with Zelensky. Now the question is Zelensky going to be as good defensively as Mkhitaryan is? And because I think that part of the reason why Inzaghi loves playing him is because he brings balance while at the same time allowing you to keep fluidity and progress the ball with dribbling. It's hard to find a player who has as many defensive interceptions as Mkhitaryan does while still providing such an attacking outlet, because he was really a offensive midfielder. That's how he started his career. So it's kind of hard to find somebody in that role. I think Zelensky will give us a lot of the stuff going forward that we get from Mickey. And then he is a better finisher at this stage of his career than Mickey is. But going backwards and trying to defend, I think we may lack a little bit of balance there. And I think that that's maybe partially the concern and why even Frattesi has had a tougher time getting into the side, just because when it comes to defensively, and also when it comes to maintaining possession in key tricky areas, Mkhitaryan has still proven to be a little bit more reliable than what we have right now in Frattesi. So yeah, don't disagree. Long term, we need to go away from Mkhitaryan just due to the age and the form. However, for Monday, there's zero doubt that he's going to start.
Yeah, I mean, I thought we should be getting away from Mkhitaryan earlier in the season. I think I said that right before the derby, and then he came out against Milan and just completely killed it. And so, and and to be honest, that was probably his like last really good game. It's been that long. But like Sterling said, he Inzaghi is Jecko the shit out of Mkhitaryan. It's unbelievable. Like the guy just consistently plays 90 minutes all the time. And for somebody at that age and with the amount of
Yeah.
like energy that he expends on the pitch every time he plays, even if he's only playing 1 day a week, like give the guy a break for God's sake. But with that said, like I think the other problem with Frattesi starting is that unfortunately, as good as this team is, like Frattesi is probably one of the only options we have off the bench to give us a spark. So I think he's just so important in that particular role. It's a bad comparison, but I'm going to make it. Like he's almost like those Mourinho Chelsea teams that had like Arjen Robben come off the bench, where it's like, okay, you need a goal or you need a spark, so bring Robben off the bench and he'll do something. I feel like we kind of treat Frattesi that way in a lot of matches, because we just don't have much else there. Inzaghi maybe can swap the wing backs or replace a wing back here and there like he usually does. Or we can try to bring in Sanchez and Arnautovic, and we know how effective that's usually been this season. But, there's a reason for Tezzi scored some pretty big goals for us late, and it's because he plays like a very important kind of role to like really find himself in great attacking positions and like, kind of running into the box late in the match when the defense is tired. So unfortunately, I think he's like so important in that role that I also just don't think that he'll get the start. But Mkhitaryan, as much as I've criticized him, he's been a very complete kind of midfielder for us. And I think he's just really tired at this point. And I wish Inzaghi would give him some breaks, but I don't think that the derby will be the time where he'll get that break, unfortunately.
And just to be clear with Frattesi, I think that that's the role that he's going to continue to have in this team even next year. Because I really don't think that Inzaghi is going to play him as a starter next year. I think Zelensky probably comes in and takes over that Mkhitaryan role, and we continue to see Frattesi as essentially a joker off the bench. So a lot of money for somebody who's going to play that role in the team, but it kind of is what it is. He still can, I think, have an impact and be an important squad member, but I just don't see him projecting to be a starter next year right now.
How would you guys approach the wingback situation for this game? Just specifically, I'm looking at right wing back. Like, would you take Dumfries and kind of the attributes he offers moving forward, or do you want the relative safety of Darmian? I think the only start-sit decision we have ahead of this match. I don't know if DeVry is available, but given how poor Cherby's been, that could be another consideration. But I think everyone knows Giroud's scoring record against DeVry.
I think you got to start Dumfries. As much as I appreciate Darmian, I was just really frustrated watching him yesterday. I just felt like he put in the most nothing performance, and maybe it's a bit harsh considering the entire team was very bland, but I don't know. He just stood out as being especially bland yesterday. I was quite frustrated. So Dumfries, he's always up for a good fight with Teo Hernandez. He's always up for the derby, and I think you got to go into this game with the intention of scoring, with the intention of being positive, and showing and communicating to Milan, we're coming here to put you to the sword and claim that second star ahead of you, right in front of you. It's a game where we should be going in to win and cause not like a psychological trauma or anything, but leave a lasting impact on Milan as well. Like I can't overstate the symbolic or mental kind of difference of winning the Scudetto directly against Milan in the derby versus just winning it against like Frosinone or like Lecce or something, right? So having Milan,
or when Sassuolo beats Atalanta.
Exactly. But if we win the derby, obviously Milan are our closest city rivals, equal in Scudetti to us, that whole second star, and whoever's going to reach it first has been like a big thing for pretty much my entire fandom following this club. And so to see that realized in a derby, it's a big thing. You want to kind of bring all the psychological weapons you have, apply that pressure upon Milan, and kind of go after it right from the get-go. The only thing you got to watch out for is just being wary that you don't kind of play yourself and let the pressure kind of fall back negatively towards you and end up kind of, how can I say, kind of shooting yourself in the foot by being too risque or too too
reckless.
Different podcast.
Reckless,
yeah, that's the word, reckless. Yeah, just being too reckless, being too
cavalier.
Yeah, exactly, too cavalier, too reckless, too aggressive. So yeah, that aside, we got to go for it. Dumfries starting ahead of Darmian is a big channel of doing that. So there's no question for me. You got to start Dumfries over Darmian. The rest of the lineup, I mean, it pretty much fills itself. Yeah. Pavard, Acerbi, Bastoni, the regular midfield three, and the starting forwards plus DeMarco. I don't know, unless you want to throw Adero in there just for shits, but
no, I think you're right. We have to play Dumfries. I mean, Dumfries has some pretty great and epic battles with Theo, and it'd be awesome to see him. You could tell Dumfries gets fired up for the derby and playing against Hernandez, like you can tell. So I would love to see him start. And honestly, like it's one of those things where Milan's no doubt a good team. They're second in the league for a reason, but we've dominated them for like the last 5 or 6 matches now, I think, or at least the last 4 that I know off the top of my head. So the team should have no kind of mental shortness here. Like they should come out and be confident, and they should be ready to roll against a team that is good, but that we've kind of dominated recently. So and I do mean dominated. And it's not that we've just like slid by with like 1-0 wins or draws. Like we've crushed them the last few times we've played them. So I think that should kind of, give us the confidence we need, especially with what's at stake. But yeah, you got to play Dumfries here. The times where we've really just taken Milan completely out of their game is when our wing backs are completely dominating theirs. Like when Dumfries dominates Theo, and when DeMarco is on his game against what's his name? Now I can't even remember his name.
Calabria.
Calabria.
Yeah, Calabria. Yeah. When he dominates Calabria, like Milan are done. Like we are just in a different zone usually. And so I think that's what I'm looking for here again. Like, wing backs have always been kind of our advantage, and I think we need to play to those advantages now. We can't go into this match being scared of Pulisic or of Leao. You have to defend. You have to depend on your midfield helping out your corner center backs to keep those guys in check. And then, depend on Dumfries and DeMarco to kind of pin Theo and Calabria back.
My only hesitation with starting Dumfries in this match is the Atletico away game where I thought he had a pretty poor match, and I thought that the connection between him and Pavard just didn't seem very gelled. It seemed like they hadn't played together a lot, and it's because they really hadn't played together that much. Obviously, Dumfries had been out for a long time when Pavard kind of really got settled into the team. I think that Darmian and Pavard started to kind of build a relationship there, and Darmian is a little bit more of a technical player. I think that having him as a passing option versus having Dumfries as a passing option, I think kind of threw Pavard for a loop in that away match against Atletico, because Dumfries just interprets the role differently than Darmian does. He wants to be higher up the pitch. He wants to at times be galloping forward and be the highest up the field, whereas you're never going to get that from Darmian. However, on the opposite side, Dumfries' performances historically in the derby, especially against Theo, have been really phenomenal for the most part. So I think you probably do lean that way in this match, just because given the historical context. But I think it's a lot closer than maybe we think it is in terms of which direction Inzaghi is going to go. I really think it's a kind of a 50-50 call here, and I wouldn't be upset if he decides to go with Darmian over Dumfries in the match.
I mean, just imagine we're an hour into the game, we're 1-0 up or 2-0 up, and then Dumfries and Theo are racing down the flank to, after a loose ball, and then Dumfries just shoulder barges Theo into the stands and then stands over him, glaring down at him. That's the kind of fucking epic scenery that I'm envisioning in my head, if things go to plan. But that, Dumfries is a prerequisite in that vision. You know what I mean? Darmian's not going to do that. Darmian's not the type to do that. Whereas, as we've all discussed, Dumfries, he got that dog in him. So I can see him stirring that shit up with Theo, and in a Scudetto-clinching derby, I mean, it's too good to pass up. So I agree 100% with Sterling. Despite all this back and forth between us about Dumfries versus Darmian, I do think it's actually completely within the realms of possibility that Limone starts Darmian here. But yeah, I'd really love to see Dumfries from the start. And we've traditionally started derbies pretty strongly. We've always, well, not always, but we've very frequently scored early goals as well. So having that early superiority, having that early kind of power down the right flank, I think is really important.
What do you guys think of just tactically after the annihilation in September? There were a lot of Milan fans online lamenting that Pioli always makes the same mistake against Inter. And when we diagnosed in the pod, we disagreed with it a bit, because it's a misnomer to just sit here and think that we sit back deep every time we play Milan and counter them, because we've beaten them a variety of ways in these past 5 rompings. So how would you approach this match from a tactical standpoint? I'll note that I believe Milan's going to be missing one of their starting center backs, and they're already down a starter as is. So like the center of the defense is always weak on this Milan team. And given that we play with 2 strikers, we always kind of have an advantage there. So what would you guys do? I know it's technically an away fixture. Would you sit back deeper again like we did last match, 2 matches ago, really? Or would you try and take some more initiative, get an early goal, and force Milan to break us down?
So I think that I would attack Milan personally. I think that part of the luxury that we get from having such a large lead in the table and knowing that if we win this match, we win the Scudetto, is that you don't really have to play so conservatively. You don't have to play with like, oh, we have a 3-point lead, let's just protect it and play for the draw. No, I think that we go out, swashbuckling performance, and try and score an early goal, maybe a couple of early goals, and then we kind of just let the match go from there. That's the approach that I would take here. I mean, not being reckless, don't play a high line against Rafael Leao like Fiorentina did. I don't think that that's the smart way to do it, but I think that we play to our strengths, that we come out, try to dominate the ball, and try and create some early chances and take the lead. And I think that we know if we do take that early lead against Milan, they're probably going to fold given the recent context of the performances against us. So if we can get that early goal, they're going to just be like, oh man, not again. Here we go. Another derby match where we're about to get embarrassed. And they really may just kind of implode on themselves. And as Jay mentioned before, they are a big confidence team. So if you can rock their confidence, I think that we have a really good chance of winning that match and maybe even comfortably. Also, I think something that we didn't really touch on is that they're going to have that match on Thursday, and that's a really big match, and they have to travel for it as well. So we'll be fully rested. We have a full week to prepare for the Derby. I think that also kind of plays into our hands as well. So especially if they get knocked out by Roma, that could also have a substantial impact on them as well mentally. But I think physically, we didn't really touch on the fact that having that extra match midweek could also be a big benefit for us.
Yeah, completely agree. If Milan, and they're already behind on aggregates, get knocked out of the Europa League, that's going to be a big blow to them. And you know they're going to start their best 11 against Roma, because I know, as much as we like to sit on here and kind of hem and haw about the Scudetto, still up for grabs. They know this race is over. I mean, they rolled out their B team against Sassuolo this weekend, knowing full well that the Europa League is their objective. So if they were to fall to Lukaku and company on Thursday, have 3 matches in a row with dropped points, of course they'll get up to the Derby because it's a Derby, and I'm sure they want the stench of the 5 consecutive losses to be washed off. But demoralized, to say the least, if they come in, fresh off a European exits to a team they're superior to in most ways. Any final thoughts on the match before we do some predictions? I don't know, Jay, if you have anything else you want to add?
As we've kind of spent some time talking about today, we're so far off the way we normally play, the regular standard that we've seen earlier on in the season, that it's kind of hard for me to sit here and talk about a tactical approach, because I just want to see the team play the way that it used to, with the same kind of quality in execution, with the same speed in transition, the same poise. And, what made this team such a machine and just racking up so many points was just how efficient we were in terms of executing our game plan, moving the ball forward quickly, getting it to the wings, getting accurate crosses in, and having some really nice, a nice mix of transitional play, attacking spaces, and vertical passes. I think of like our equalizer against Juventus, where the ball went from Sommer out to Damian or Dumfries, and then Barella, and then he played down Thuram down the right, and then Thuram in for Lautaro goal. It was like literally 4 passes or something from goalkeeper to putting the ball in the back of the net. We've not seen that kind of thing for a while, and it's less to do with the tactical system and more to do with just the overall form of the team. So if the tactical approach is like a big consideration here, then I'd like to see us play positively, and I just don't want to see us approach the game with the intention of sitting deep and soaking up pressure, because I think that would actually backfire. Milan are not great at attacking teams with 10 men behind the ball. They're not good at breaking down tight defenses, but they've always got that route one option in Giroud, winning a lot of headers. And as we've discussed, our defense has not been brilliant recently, so I don't want to kind of tempt the fates by inviting them to attack us. So I'd rather see us start positively, but like I said, for me, it's all about uh, the attitude, the motivation, the energy going into the match. If we have that correct, and we're able to kind of tap into any remaining energy reserves and put in like a January or December, November type performance against Milan, then regardless of what tactical approach we take, I think we're more or less good for the game.
Yeah, I would agree with that sentiment. I think it's going to be more about just being focused and not making the kind of lapses in concentration, other mistakes that we've been making recently, and to make sure that we're just first to every ball. Like some of the energy's also just been lacking, which now that we're only playing once a week, there's really no excuse that there should be any lack of energy by anybody on the team. So I think what you said is right. I think we need to make sure that we come out on the front foot. But that doesn't mean we need to, have wave after wave of attack. I think we could play our game, play confidently, go in with the upper hand, and just come out with a good result. I think the guys will be focused. I think they'll be ready. They'll be well prepared. And I think we'll be able to get a good result. But I don't think the guys will be underestimating Milan by any stretch. I think there's also something to the fact that we've been alluding to all day, which is that I'm sure everyone on the team also wants the Scudetto to be confirmed and for the last kind of 5 or 6 matches to mean nothing. So I think, everyone will go into it with that too. Like, let's lock this up so then we can all kind of mentally check out and then eventually physically check out and go to Dubai or go to the Maldives, wherever all these guys are going to go to celebrate.
So Miko, of course, was at the match yesterday. Feel bad for him going all that way from Finland to watch a disappointing 2-2 draw. So he's not potting with us, but he did want to send in his prediction for the derby, which is a 2-1 Inter win, and probably includes a Hakan penalty built in there. Sterling, what's your prediction for the match?
Well, I was actually going to say 2-1 as well, but I feel like I can't copy Miko, although copying Miko does seem like the smart thing to do now that I think about it, because I'm pretty sure he's been right the last couple of weeks. He's actually the real hot betting tip here. No offense to Jay, of course.
Excuse
But I
me.
will go with
Excuse me.
I will go with a 2-0 for Inter in this match. We're gonna keep Rafael Leao and Pulisic from scoring again, so I'm gonna go with 2-0.
Jay?
I'm going for a big 3-0 for Milan to ruin our Scudetto party. 2 goals from Leao, 1 goal from Pulisic. And everyone goes home disappointed, and then we. No, I'm kidding. I genuinely think this is a really tough game to pick, a tough match to predict. I can see it honestly, kind of fizzling out in like a kind of 0-0, 1-1 kind of draw. I honestly think there's a lot of anxious energy on both teams, and I don't think either team has been playing particularly well. Even though, I mean, the form chart is good. We've won 3 of the last 5, drawing the other 2. Milan have won 4 of the last 5, but if you look at like the last 2 or 3 games each, all comps, especially Milan, like neither team is really passing the eye test for me right now. They both look they both look at their wits' end. So I could honestly see a 1-1, but I'm gonna be positive by my standards and say we eke out a late and dramatic 1-0 victory to secure the Scudetto. And I'm going to give the goal to. I'll give it to. I'll give it to Arnautovic.
Oh boy.
I was just gonna suggest that. So that's awesome. I'm gonna go with a 3-0 Inter win, Hakan hat trick.
Oof,
which is
that'd
what
be
I
nice.
want to happen. But yeah, what I think is going to end up happening is I also think it's going to be a little bit cagier than we expect. Milan have pride as well. I think it'll be a 1-0 win for Inter. And I'm going to give the goal to Lautaro coming back and breaking the duck.
God forbid if we lose here, what do we need from the remaining games? Like, how many more points do we need from the remaining games to mathematically secure the title?
I think it's still the same, right? I mean, assuming Milan, I think it's just +3 to Milan, right? So we could theoretically go all the way to the last week, right? Or I don't know. No, we can't.
We need Miko here for this kind of math. This is Miko's specialty.
Yeah. I think I recall someone saying if we lose the derby, we need 4 points from the remaining matches.
Yeah,
or something like
that sounds right. That sounds right. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that was prior to the two draws, Milan and Sassuolo and us versus Cagliari anyway. So I don't know how that changes things, if at all. But whatever. Let's just Let's just win, so we don't have to worry about this bullshit. I'm sick of this shit. Seriously,
Same.
just let us win. Let us win, so we can just fucking end the season. I'm so sick of this.
The question you have to ask going into this match is, does this Milan team have any pride whatsoever? They've lost 5 in a row to us, to various iterations of us, the most recent of which in completely embarrassing fashion. They bottled any chance of winning the Scudetto. Are they really going to let this Inter team go in their home derby match and celebrate on their pitch, celebrate in front of the Curva Sud? And my answer is that this Milan team has zero pride. 3-0 Inter, feeling confident about it. There is just, until Pioli can show me that he can step into a match and not get completely body bagged by Inzaghi, I refuse to believe he's capable of doing so. We have his number. We're going to keep it rolling.
Attaboy. I like that.
Any Jay's hot betting tips before we wrap up?
What other? Honestly, no, but I'll just make one up.
Yeah, give me one for the Europa League. Roma against Milan. Do? Yeah. Make up a Roma Europa League game.
Okay, here's one. Milan beat Roma 2-1 and then wildly celebrate, believing they've won the tie, only to realize that away goals do not exist anymore. Disappointed, they return to the pitch and concede a Lukaku penalty in the 119th minute for Roma to draw the game 2-2 and win 3-2 on aggregate.
I love it.
Irfan, I'm just curious. Irfan, do you know, does Champions League DNA apply to the Europa League?
I don't know. I've heard it's just European. Yeah, it's European DNA.
It's continental.
There you go.
Yeah, European pedigree.
All right. Well, I think we'll wrap it there. We'll be back next week to recap the Derby and hopefully celebrate the Scudetto. Sterling, thanks for potting with us again, and yeah, catch you then.
Absolutely. My pleasure, guys.
All right. Thanks, everyone.